This is what I bought last year, an old bandsaw. Who knows how old this is? The frame surely is at least 100 years old and maybe much older. Cast iron and heavy. Very, very heavy. It took 2 of us 7 hours to get it into Sandra's van. I won't forget that day in a hurry. The plan is to connect it to the stationary engine and see what happens. But of course, I'm doing this in the wrong order. I should build the shed first, before I put the bandsaw in. But I'm waiting for materials for that job, and in the meantime, I need the bandsaw for a particular job, which I hope to tell you about soon. The first challenge is to move it up to the engine. That's a 2-person job. Luckily, Will was around. He only comes for 1 afternoon a week, but I save the heavy jobs for then, so that's why you see so much of him. It's a good job we put this concrete floor in, or we'd be struggling. As it is, it all went very smoothly.
One hand on each spoke and...
Now, even this bottom spindle assembly is a 2-person job to install.
Oh look, there's our first. Yeah, doesn't look like it's had much wear.
No, it looks fine, doesn't it? Bit of fresh grease in there.
Try again.
This end, it's got a proper little pot.
Yeah, it's got one there as well, little one.
It runs through a hole in the frame,
Yeah,
and it's held with 3 bolts.
Looks, it's very big by the...
In the meantime, Will is giving out to me because he thinks I'm not quite as meticulous as he is. Can you believe it?
One of them's here.
I don't see you doing it though.
Well, I just feel...
What's the point?
Even when I'm wiping off the cobwebs, I feel very judged. I feel like Tim's just thinking, stop being tedious, just put it on.
Put it on, get it going.
Whereas I was thinking, I stopped myself from asking, have you got any wet and dry?
Wet and dry, eh?
To clean off the rust on there. I thought, oh well, just shut it.
No, let's rough it into place and then we'll come back and make it beautiful.
Yeah, I heard that one before.
I suppose you want to tighten those nuts as well.
For fuck's sake.
It might need shims to keep the blade drive wheel vertical, but we'll see.
Action shot, you see, important.
It's very rare footage now. Tim, are you cleaning off rust?
Will's being very rude. We're going to not just clean off the rust, we're going to put some grease in here. Grease, real grease.
Is this an oily rag, Tim?
It is now, Will.
For God's sake. Like, where's he going with this one? Who put grease on here? It's a good check with all the dirt now.
He's never happy. Put grease on, wrong place.
Oh, sure.
So we have to get this over the threaded bar and this inside the, what do you call those little shoulder things?
Dovetails?
Dovetail shoulders.
Or the ways, maybe.
And not drop it.
The top wheel assembly is even heavier than the bottom wheel assembly. It slides up and down in a special channel to tension the blade, but it also has a tilting mechanism for tracking. Perhaps we should have taken it apart more, but we climbed up on some pallets and had a go at lifting it into position. But it was just too heavy. So we found some more pallets and just about managed.
Why isn't it going up? Oh, come on. There we go. Yes.
So far, so good.
Before Sandra notices.
Yeah. Should we upgrade her or give her this crappy one again?
Okay, so this is the pulley that it came with, but if we drive it from either of those, it means this is going to spin so fast that the blades, by my calculations, will be spinning about 5,000 feet a second. No, no, let's try it again.
Yes!
5,000 feet a minute, which is apparently far more than is recommended. So we need a plan.
The plan is to use a larger pulley on the saw end, because that will slow down the speed of the
I
blade.
think it's had its day really.
But a big pulley would be very expensive to buy. So we considered our options.
What you got there, Will?
Some bling. I think we need to upgrade this, don't you? That would be much better.
No!
Alloy wheels now.
What the? That's mad! But would it work?
Cut a load of that off. We could fix that on there. Bish, bash,
Bob's
bosh.
your uncle. Interesting. Okay, I'll do the maths and see what speed it will be spinning at.
This is an alloy wheel that Matt gave me to melt down. Thanks, Matt.
Even balanced.
Yeah. You know, we
We
could
have
either
the
run
pulley.
on there or on there, maybe.
We also need to twist
Yeah.
the belt to get this thing spinning in the right direction.
It seems odd to put this modern aluminium wheel onto such an ancient machine, but I'm sure it's had lots of modifications over the years already, so this is just the latest. For instance, the two band wheels don't match at all. They're not even the same size, and I'm sure that's not the way it was first made. And originally it would have been engine driven, quite possibly by steam, with a much bigger pulley, but someone modified it to run from an electric motor with a small pulley, so in some ways we're just restoring it to its earlier drive system. Now apparently you should never do this, by the way. Too easy to pinch the blade, so don't do it. But if you do it, and you're very careful, and you stop while the wheel's still intact, you can save a lot of time and grinder discs. I finished it off with the grinder, and we bolted the new pulley onto the smaller pulley. There's an optimum speed for a bandsaw blade to travel at, depending on the type of wood you're sawing and the size of your teeth. But because those things are variable, I'm going for a compromise of around 2,000 feet per minute. And because the engine speed is fixed at 600 RPM, we need a pulley this big to affect the reduction. Let's see if it works. And if it does work, then at least I can paint it so it looks more like a bandsaw and less like a boy racer's car. The next day I went and found the longest V-belt ever, 5.3 meters long, and set about positioning the saw to match. It's not so easy on my own and with all that extra weight on board. Now I was thinking I'd need an idler pulley to tension the belt as I've used before, but because it's such a long belt and liable to be thrashing around, I thought I'd need a big all-encompassing idler pulley to hold onto it properly, whether it's slack or tight. How about a wheelbarrow wheel? At least it's the right colour, and it does have the wrong bearings. Although I thought it might still work if I took out the rubber bushings and used a galvanized shaft and lots of grease. Perhaps the bigger challenge is working out where and how to hinge it, down near the saw or up near the engine, where it might be more likely to keep the belt on the pulley but perhaps more difficult to operate. We may never find out, because then Ashley came by and we discovered another solution which, if it really works, will be way simpler and cheaper. First of all though, we had to start the engine. And because it's summer and the oil inside is thinner, we had to go without the starter motor. You just need some brute force, perseverance, and just a little skill. Of course, I kindly warmed it up for him first, make it easy for him.
Ooh, excellent. Well done. Interesting.
The weight of the belt was enough to drive the saw wheel even with no tension on it. And I probably should have tightened the bolts up on this big new car wheel pulley first, but I can't think of everything. I was just really happy that this old saw and this old engine were talking to each other so well. Now, could I tension the belt somehow, without all the fuss of idler pulleys and levers and springs and hinges? Well, this is what I came up with. A bit of old pipe. A little nudge and the belt hops up onto a wider ridge and tightened up perfectly. And a nudge in the other direction put it back down into neutral. Well, that was easy. I don't know how it will behave with a blade on it, but at the moment it does carry on spinning quite freely, even in neutral. But it's not that difficult to stop with a brake, so perhaps I'll make one of those. But maybe it won't be necessary. I'm sure I'll find out. But look, for the first time in who knows how many years, an engine is driving this beautiful old spoked wheel round and round. I think that's pretty exciting. Next step, the blade, the guides, the table, and a safer gear lever. I can't wait to see if it will actually cut something. What do you think?